Jesse, how are you, my friend? Oh, this is great. Welcome to the PFCA podcast. It is so cool to have you on board. How are you?
It is an honor to be on your podcast, and
The honor is all
congratulations for
mine.
starting.
Oh, thank you, man. The honor is all mine. I've actually been really looking forward to this pod, and you and I spoke a little bit, and you gave me like a whistle stop tour about you and what you've achieved, and I can't wait for people to hear just how there's just so much cool stuff about you. I just think you're so cool. But there's a story I have to tell.
Okay. Yeah.
And luckily you've met my wife, so this isn't gonna come across creepy, or it might do, but it is kind of creepy. So the first time I literally saw you, I fell in love with you to some degree. And you know why, and I'm going to share the story in a second, but it sounds super creepy. So just so the viewers and the listeners can be on the same page. So we were in, where were we? Vienna? We were in Vienna. So we were on a seminar, and basically it arrives and like people arriving, whatever. And then this woman walked in and she just had the most incredible lats I'd ever seen. And in that instant, I thought, wow, she's worked so hard to get those. Those are amazing. She is a badass. She is super strong. She is a badass. Oh my word, she's a badass. And then I just felt the urge to come over to you and just be like, hey, your lats are amazing. and you were just like, oh, thank you. I've been working really hard on them. And that's how our weird relationship started.
Yes. It's funny because it was probably about, oh God, it was over a year before that. I had been like, my left lat was like completely undeveloped. So I had killed myself trying to like fix the symmetry and just get them functional. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I have worked really hard for these.
100%. I love that. I think just on that, because that particular seminar, there were loads of like people with personal brand. It could be quite intimidating, and like meeting people can often be quite intimidating, quite awkward, especially in those situations where at a seminar it's almost like, hey, we're here to learn, but also look how much I know kind of thing. It's like this weird like hypocrisy. But there's one thing that people don't do enough. It's just random compliments. I didn't come to you because I wanted to lead it on any other way other than just share a lovely compliment. What's your interpretation of all that in the world?
I completely agree. One of the things when I was thinking about this conversation was that the reason I've been successful in my career is because of the relationships I've built. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like how technically good you are as a coach. It doesn't matter like, what qualifications you have. Really, at the end of the day, it's like, have you fostered these relationships with humans? And so when you go to those sorts of events, it's like, if you can connect on a human level with someone, like that's how our relationship started. It's how so many of my future like business relationships started, was like just chatting to someone on the gym floor and just getting along at a human level.
Yeah, 100%. So talking about that, and this is why I started as such. As a human, you are a pretty epic human. But if we were to do an intro and you were to do one for me, who do you identify as right now? Who are you?
I am the co-founder of the Shiro Life, which is a holistic fitness community for women. I specialize in women's specific coaching, but focusing on embodied strength training. So all the work that I do at the moment is concentrating on the entirety of a woman, combining your emotional and psychological needs with your physical needs. And that, I feel, has been such a big missing piece for most people. Like, doesn't matter if you've never been training or you have been training. I get a lot of clients who are 10, 15 years of training experience, but have never learned how to embody their emotions. And that affects their ability to train well. It affects their ability to adapt their training to their needs. So I guess that's where I'm at now.
I love that. I think if I am brutally honest, having seen your evolution over the last, I think 5-6 years ago is when I met you. It's really cool to see. And it's kind of what happens when you have skin in the game, like yourself, when you go down that rabbit hole, like you have, and how so many coaches don't see that, like, this journey just, it never ends. But as long as like it's met with this like humility as a student, but this passion and drive and confidence in yourself that you can learn more and you're worthy of learning more, you go down this like really interesting path. And like when we talk about skin in the game, like you have skin in the game as an athlete and a coach. You have some serious skin in the game. So much so, same seminar, we were deadlifting. I don't know what it was. It was like multiple reps of like 140. And then you came over and were like, hey boys, do you mind if I jump in on the bar with you? And you were just like, just lats on and go, just taking it for a walk. I was like, oh, she is so badass. But if we talk about your athletic achievements, could you, because I like when I first told my wife about you, I was like, babe, this woman, she is fucking strong. She's got this deadlift and that bench, whatever. Talk to me more about like that powerlifting time in your life, the numbers that you achieved. What did you learn through that journey? Let's discuss that.
Yeah. So powerlifting, I went into after being in CrossFit for years and realizing that I loved doing heavy, short workouts. I didn't like conditioning. And so powerlifting felt like a very natural progression. And when I started looking at what were the like qualifying totals like for an elite total for me to be eligible to represent Australia, my current totals without training powerlifting would have had me at an elite total. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Let's see.
Casually.
And so my first powerlifting coach, I sat with him and said, I want to be able to compete at Worlds within the next 4 years. That's my goal. Can you help me? And so I ended up getting to Worlds in 2 years. And my highest numbers were 157.5 squat, 97.5 bench, and 180 deadlift.
Jeez.
I still like one day I'd like to get over those, but after doing those, I've taken a few years off. Now I'm focusing on growing a business. So what did I learn from that whole experience? One of the things that I think from all of my years of competing in CrossFit and powerlifting was that you always, and the same in coaching, that you always have to have people better than you around you. So having athletes, if they're not specifically in my gym, like going out of my way to meet them, to connect with them online so that I'm able to see these numbers that to me in the beginning seem impossible. And I see a girl who's in my weight class lifting it, then that gives me that belief that it's possible. And I think the actual act of competing is such a massive learning experience. And I don't encourage everybody to compete, but a lot of my clients, when we've been working for several years, eventually I do encourage them to try a powerlifting competition if they're fairly proficient at the movements. Not because I want them to try and compete at an elite level, but because you learn so much about yourself, your self-belief, managing stress, managing things that are outside of your control, how like, because everything about being successful in those situations is your mindset. Because everything you do in training, by the time you get to competition day, like you can't do anything else. All you can do is turn up and perform at your best. you have no control over what's happening with the judges. You have no control over how long you have between each rep. You don't have any control of the equipment. All you can do is turn up and perform. So definitely, like, so much that I learned about mindset, about what works for me to be able to be my most successful, what things trigger me and make it like impossible for me to focus. So like, it was one of the funniest things, like some athletes, some people realize like they're pretty chilled people and they need to get like sympathetic arousal before they go into a lift. So they're the ones who are like getting hyped up behind and they need someone to smack them on the back and all of that. Like, I am the opposite of that. Not even in the slightest. Like, if I'm excited like that, I completely ruin my lifting. So I'm like whole competition listening to an audiobook, completely ignoring everyone around me.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Like, I have to be so completely focused and not thinking about what's the next lift I'm going to do and what are all the things that can go wrong. I have to be like completely just like concentrating on my breathing, trying not to think about anything too much. And you can only learn those things about yourself if you're on a competition floor.
Yeah, being exposed. I love that. That's so cool. You know, we often talk about like the athlete and the coach, and not all good athletes make good coaches or the other way around. And with a lot of people that we look after who are coaches, but they're trying to live this life of a professional athlete, even though it's not the thing that's putting food on their plate. For you, you know, again, skin in the game, you've been to regionals twice. You then went into powerlifting. Like, you've had, you know, the proof is in the pudding in terms of like skin in the game. But now kind of seeing your evolution and to kind of where you are today, it just showcases how there's so much to this game that like we still don't even know. And for you in particular, it's evident that once you go so far past movement as what you see, exercise prescription as what you see, weight on a bar as what you see, and start to dive deeper in the human, what is that deep rooted narrative that they tell themselves, that they believe. Now all of a sudden it's a very different game, and it's a game that if you don't know your lane, you can definitely cross into territories that we are not equipped for. But if 100%. You do know your lane, all of a sudden you can use exercise prescription as a mechanism to break these narratives, just like you said. Like, until you get exposed, you don't know. Quite interesting, eh?
Such a good insight. I think a few things that popped up into my head when you're saying that. First, obviously understanding that, like, within my knowledge base right now, what am I capable of handling? So it's really important to know what you have the resources to manage or what you need to outsource for. So having a really good network of people that you can refer out for. I work with a lot of people now who are recovering from pain, working through emotional things. And obviously I'm not a therapist, but I have quite a few clients who are working with therapists and different types of other healing modality sort of specialists. And then the training they do with me is this perfect complement to that healing process. So they're working through emotional trauma and all of these things that are present and affecting their movement. And when we can look at that from a holistic view, then we're able to like really just break open and make these amazing life-changing experiences for them. But it's taken me a lot of years before I've been able to create that support network for them. And there was a long time where if someone came to me and their sort of the challenges that they were working with were outside of my scope, I've always had coaches around me that I was happy to refer out to. And still today, like if someone comes to me and says, I want to do body composition and weight loss, like I have no interest in training that. I'm also not a specialist in that. I could help you lose weight and do a diet, but that's not that's not what I do. And so there are other people who are specialized, like refer out always. And the understanding that your skills will keep growing and then new opportunities will come for you to keep growing within that. Like it amazes me now, like with the scope of what I've been working on recently, every time I start thinking, oh, it'd be interesting to see how I could apply this with a client. And then the next client who inquires is like dealing with that specific thing.
Yeah, it's like that new vibe is almost attracting that same frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love what you said there with regards to like knowledge and capability. It's actually something that came up in our recent seminar in Dublin, where again we got that question of like, how do you deal with like imposter syndrome as a coach? What's your advice to new coaches, what have you? And even coaches like, you know, yourself and myself have been coaching for a very long time, and there are these moments of, let's say, imposter syndrome. And Ollie shared something really powerful. It was like, we need to stop identifying as coaches in the moment of you as a student. That's a very different identity. And if as coaches, we recognize with my current knowledge base, what am I capable of doing? Deliver that with a hell of a lot of confidence, conviction, because the people that you serve, you know, they need that in which you have, and you can bring them up, you can build them up. But then as a student, be humble, be found wanting, be found in a place where your beliefs are challenged, or you actually need to level up. And that's actually that's the amazing part of being a PT or a gym owner or in the fitness space, because the journey is never ending. And if you can marry up that relationship between like confident practitioner, we call it, and humble student, all of a sudden you can start to help people and build people up, but also be willing to humble yourself down, keep that like white belt mentality, that kind of chat. Yeah. And then just to kind of go a little bit further, like there's so much power in referring out. And it's recognizing that should you be able to build a care pathway for that in which you routinely face with the people that you serve, that actually builds up your professionalism. So you actually are seen as the kingpin as such to get access to my network. If you came to me and you needed a specialist in that area, and I were to say to you, hey, I want you to go see this guy, all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're in my tribe and you get to meet my friend. Like that's a very different situation, rather than just going, hey, you've got some pelvic floor issues, go find yourself a clinical Pilates specialist. Like it's a very different conversation, right? Because that's intimidating. They're probably not going to do it. If they find the wrong person, then you literally cut their legs away from them. But if you can literally take them on that, what's the thing when you go to the airport and it's like a travelator? What's it called?
The conveyor belt.
Yeah, it's that one. Like it needs to be that. It's like, hey, don't worry. You don't even need to walk. I'll take you there. Like, let's go together.
100%. Okay? And along with that, so one thing that I have done many times in my career is one of my clients will say, oh, I went and has a really great experience with this pelvic floor physiotherapist. I say then, well, can you connect me with them? I then go and meet them. I ask them, how do you assess your clients? What is it that you're looking for? What are the things that you're seeing commonly come in that people aren't talking about? And when that specialist then sees your desire for knowledge, that person will then start saying, well, my clients, I'm helping them with the initial rehab, but they need further training. So then they're going to refer to you because they see that you know your stuff. They know that you care about the entirety of the process. And then you've also got that person that anytime this comes up with a client, you know that you can refer to them and that they're going to do an amazing job. And I do that with all the different types of specialities that I refer to all the time. Yeah.
It's so powerful because if you can do that, and largely that's how I built my PT business back in the day, was having those people around me. And it was largely based on like, now retrospectively, I can see it was a value system where they recognize the value that a good coach could have on their clients' journey, including like what we can do back and forth to them. Whereas there is people who are just very selfish and they're like, well, what can I get out of this? But yeah, it's very interesting. I would highly recommend that if you're a trainer or a coach or a gym owner, to have such a vast network of all these specialities, whether it's, as you say, pelvic floor specialist across to psychotherapy, mindset, performance coaching, to rehab, whatever. It's really, really important. And it all needs to complement this upward trajectory of just getting people better. Exactly. I like that word. I love that word, complement. I actually want to play around with that. In terms of training, right? Because I can see it now evident with you and your training over the years. It's amazing how we go from a stage where it's just like do as much as we can, go as hard as we can, as heavy as we can. But it's not necessarily complementing your life. Yeah. And now I'm not for like soft training and like not finding intensity. Of course, we need to find intensity. We need to be exposed, but it needs to be done in a way that can complement all that you do in life as a businessman or woman, as a partner, as a lover, as a friend, as a father, as a mother. If you're not getting that complementary response, like, you know, what's happening? So if we talk about complementary kind of aspect of training, what are some of your like core principles with everything that you do now?
I think underneath that, the main thing that like stands out to me is that your body only has so much capacity to handle stress. And so I think of it as like you have, like, we know if emotional stress, training stress, whatever, like thinking about something that makes you feel stressed, you're going to have that sympathetic nervous system response in the body. And majority of the clients that we have come in are highly sympathetic aroused all the time. And so by educating them that like you only, like it's like a fuel tank, like if there's only so much you can take before like it's going, you have no fuel left. And if you're constantly in sympathetic nervous system state, then this is where you're going to end up burnt out, injured, you know, all of the negative things from being highly stressed all the time. So to me, it starts with educating it about what does my body feel like when I'm sympathetic nervous system aroused? What does my body feel like when I'm in a parasympathetic state? Am I able to be aware when I'm shifting? And then based on that, we choose training that's going to support what our body needs. So to me, complementary is if I've got a super stressful job, then your probable need is that we need to then be able to get you into a parasympathetic state and focus on making sure that you're able to rest and recover well. So then the intensity of your training obviously can't be so high. You can still train, but how you attack training is going to be different. And the same if you're someone who's like a very like chilled person that's not ever getting like really pushing intensity, that has never learned what it feels to push hard, then it's having those safe ways to push that side of the system. And when you've been in coaching for long enough, you see both. You see the people who are like, I've never pushed hard in my life. They don't know what failure is. They don't know.
They need that slap on the back you were talking about.
Yeah. And then you have the other ones that are so high strung all the time. And if you say, sit down and close your eyes, they're like, that is just not going to happen. So then how do we create that safe space? And safety is, I think, the key always to any change, to allow that to happen with training. So personally, that meant, you know, when I was training to compete, what you have to do is so different. Like, you know that training to compete at that level is at a sacrifice to health. You can't be strong at that level without it sacrificing other things. You can't, and it's not just a physical sacrifice. You're sacrificing your social life and, other things. And I think that was a really valid point that you made about the people who say that they're a coach, but they're trying to train as an athlete as well. How much are you capable of giving to your clients if you're fully training as an athlete? Because I know that when I was training to compete as an athlete, my energy reserves then when I'm with my clients is much less. So my capacity, like I obviously had to be much more conscious of how many coaching hours I was doing, what energy that was taking from me. And I also had absolutely no social life.
Yeah.
So
it's like the standard, I'm holding up the squat rack while I coach you kind of posture. I love everything you said there. I think a big word that stood out for me there was just like awareness. And many people lack or don't even or are unwilling to chase a level of awareness because they're scared to, or because it like seems boring or seems a little bit woo-woo. But in actual fact, if you can get an understanding of your drivers, it's a profound impact on how you act. We were in Dublin last week, and we met up with some of the gym owners that we look after. And after dinner, we went for a couple of pints of Guinness. It was a very special moment, and we were just talking. And I through this discussion, I actually made this amazing guy. I made him more aware of how important recognition is for him based on all the stories he's told me. He was like, I didn't know that I needed recognition, but that makes so much sense. I was like, yeah, but now how can we facilitate that more? It's like, that makes so much sense. And it's like the same thing. So many people are unaware. They avoid to actually ask those questions or to dive deeper within themselves because perhaps they're scared of what they find out because what others might think. But it's just about knowing yourself, know that well enough so that you can make more informed decisions. And those informed decisions are now they're in line with who you are. So you can be more fulfilled. You can be more clear. You can have less fluff around the edges. That's so powerful. It's mad.
It's so true. I was talking about this a few weeks ago with another coach that I'm friends with, and we were talking about what is the foundational principles. I have a coaching intern starting next week, and I'm like, to me, what is the most important thing that they learn? And there's multiple things under that, but the very first thing is what is important to you? Who are you? What makes you tick? What makes you feel good in your body? What are your values, and where are your boundaries? And then what is that mission around coaching? And until you can define those things, you're never going to have a career that you love. Because you have, for example, I know that if I don't have a full night's sleep, I feel shit the next day. I'm not going to deliver well in my coaching. So I choose not to take any clients at 6 a.m. because I would then have to be up at 4 a.m. because I have a giant dog that needs to be walked. And I already am working too late for me to get a full night of sleep. So it's just a no-go for me. Of course, I learned that from years of doing the 5 a.m. start and working till 9 and killing myself, and then wondering why I was burnt out and kept getting sick. And now, and I used to feel so bad for saying no when a client would say, I really want to work with you. Can I do this time? And I'm like, I really want to help you. So I'll do it at the sacrifice of myself. And once you're clear on your boundaries, then you're able to deliver a better service. You're a happier person, and it's going to give you longevity in the industry.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I think if I were to kind of summarize that in our language and what we do within the mentorship and education stuff is, first and foremost, yeah, you're right. You need to know who you are, what your drivers are, what's important to you, what is your passion about this, what makes you feel fulfilled. What moments have you had maybe in your sporting history where you've gone that coach had an impact on me. That's inspirational. I want to do the same to others. Like, these things really matter. And then understanding like the values in which you want to live by and the boundaries that you want to set. And yes, like when you're starting your business, you might need to be the yes man until you expose yourself to enough different types of people. But then having the awareness to go, I'm running empty here. Like, I need to draw some boundaries, 100%. I think sometimes some people take the too extreme. They're like, they want this perfect day, but they aren't committing. Do you know what I mean? They aren't. They're like, I just want to work between like 1 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I can sleep till 11. I can go for brunch. I can put it on Instagram. I can coach for 2 hours. I can go train, and then that's it, right?
Well, it's like you may be able to have that life after you've done the grind for 10 years, but
correct.
Like we didn't get good because we did like 3-hour work days, a few days a week.
God forbid any trainer does 60-hour work weeks again. That was horrendous. Oh, I remember those days. It's so rough.
Well,
so rough.
I think I mentioned it to you that when I first started coaching, I had so little belief in myself and that people would want to pay me. That I was working full time in a corporate career. I would train myself in the morning. So I'd train from like 6 in the morning. I'd be in the office by 9. I'd leave the office. I had a very understanding boss who was like, yeah, of course you can coach and do other things as long as your work's done. So I'd leave the office at 4 and then I would coach until 8 p.m. And I did that every day for 4 years, and I didn't have weekends. I coached on weekends. I completely killed myself.
See, but I'm not gonna lie, and I love that you just brought this up, because actually, forgive me for forgetting that story. It just shows that there's so many people that want to transition into PT, but they're not willing to put the work in, because there's also the element of like, hey, I need to like I'm not saying go and kill yourself, but you need to fucking strap in, and get dirty, and you did that. And yes, the deep-rooted narrative was the lack of confidence, and you retrospectively you can now see that. But the fact of the matter is, you did what you needed to do, which was you went to work, right?
100%.
And you sacrificed shit. And I think so many people want this PT life, and I love how you said it took us 10 years to get here. It's that good old saying. It's a good old saying where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm an overnight success. I'm a 10-year overnight success. It took 10 years to be an overnight success.
Yeah, 100%.
It takes time, right? And I think so many people want to play in this game because it is incredible. It is fulfilling. It is so exciting and dynamic. You meet awesome people. You change lives. It's fucking cool, but it's only cool if you're willing to put in the work. And that work is unrewarding to some degree if you don't have the awareness piece to go, I made an impact on that person's day, and that was fulfilling to me. If you're just going in and going, I need to get up to X amount of money a month, and until that point I'm not happy, that's a horrible journey. It's it's not even worth trying.
And the thing is, if all you're looking at your clients is a way to be paid for another hour, and you have clients that train with you for 6 years and they still can't function without you, and they're paying you for 3 or 4 sessions a week, great, you're getting this continual income, but what have you done for them? It infuriates me when I have clients come to me and they're like, I've been training for 10 years. And then I'm like, you literally don't know how to squat. You've never learned how to brace, the most foundational things. And then when I start looking at their stress levels and their nutrition habits, I'm like, what the hell was this person teaching you for the last however many years? And then they're like, wow, how is it my other coach never told me this? And I'm like, because they looked at you as just some cash coming in. Yeah.
That's mad. Imagine if, I don't know what the math is, but 3 times a week, a premium rate for 10 years, that's a lot of money. That's
so much money.
Oh man, that is sad. Let's not go down that route. So I want to ask you, how would you advise a trainer So you mentioned about like energy levels dropping, when you were training, what have you, when you're PTing. If you were to describe how to bring energy in a PT session, how would you describe that? What does that look like?
To me, so I used to use the same analogy many years ago. So I've had a few careers. So I used to be the VIP cabin crew, and part of my job was teaching cabin crew how to be cabin crew. And I used to explain it as as soon as those doors open and the passengers walk on board, you're on stage.
Yeah.
And it's the same when you're coaching. If you're teaching a class, it requires a much bigger amount of energy. If you're one-on-one, you have to meet the person where they're at. You have to work out what they need from you energetically, and you have to show up with that. And it's not like you just have to find energy. Like, you have to learn how to deliver what your client needs in that moment. And if that's being hyper energetic so that they can get through their session, if that's they need you to hold space energetically for them so that they can feel whatever they're feeling and have a big cry, your space is to hold that space for your client, no matter what that is. Which is why it's so important for you to learn how to regulate yourself and to fill up your own tank when you're not with your clients.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. You are on stage. We talk about the relationship between the technical skills and the soft skills, or the technical skills and the showmanship that you need to, the hype man, the jester, the person that just has a little bit of charisma. But when we talk about energy, you're right. There's a skill set to read the frequency that they bring in, and is it one that needs to be dialed up or dialed down? Yeah. And within that moment, if we say one-to-one for now, in that moment, it's recognizing that they come into your capsule. You've created this safe space, and can you let them leave feeling empowered and elevated to go and do life better? Yeah. So if it was that you need to dial them down, great. How does that improve their life when they leave? Or is it that you need to empower them with more energy, more vibrancy that they're going to kill their day? Then great. That's what is required. So how can you then prescribe exercise, encourage, motivate, slap on the back, whatever you need to do to get them feeling fuck yeah, I'm good. I've got this shit. Yeah. Right. And I absolutely love that. And again, it just comes back to, there's just so much when it comes to coaching, and in a group setting, there is a little bit more of the hype man thing, because it's as a whole, how can you improve someone's level of perception of where they are, how you can elevate the room from a frequency standpoint, and how you can just meet every individual where they're at. And it always comes down to that that hospitable service and treating everyone like they're an individual. Yes. And I always say to trainers and gym owners, if you or your team have never experienced a 5-star service or a Michelin star restaurant, that's step one. It's exactly what you're saying about VVIP. That level of customer care is second to none. And if you can bring that in your service, that's that above and beyond nature. That's that quality that never gets forgotten.
100%. On that, I think I was thinking this morning, actually, I've been coaching for just over 10 years, but I've been working full time for over 20 years. And so when I think back to everything that I did before coaching set me up for being more successful as a coach, because there's, like you said, there's so many skills that go into being successful once you're with the client. So obviously the movement mechanics and those things, that's important. But what it takes for you to show up exactly for that person with whatever is going on in their day, and for you to give them that premium service. That's taken like the previous 10 years of other stuff, like learning those skills. And I think, like, I've noticed this, a lot of people, when they start out, they're like, oh, like I don't have, like I've just done this certificate. But if you often look back, like obviously if you're a 20-year-old who's never had any work experience, like you're just going to have to learn over time, keep exposing yourself to more experiences. But for me, like I didn't start coaching until I was in my late 20s. And I'd already been working for over 10 years. So much that I learned about how to interact with people, how to show up for them in the way that they needed, how to manage people, how to and then all kinds of things about like managing teams, running a business, all of that stuff. Like I learned that not in the fitness industry. So you've got to appreciate that, like, everywhere is an opportunity to learn stuff that will help you be a better coach.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. I often tell people the answer you're looking for is probably not in the fitness industry. And yeah, like if you are a gym owner looking to hire someone that might not have much, well, may have experience, may not. The actual big thing is like, are they a good person?
Yes.
And are they a good people person? You can teach all the other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
100%.
how much did you learn in the last 10 years to be the technical coach you are? Do you know what I mean? But it's like, are you fun? Are you just a nice, are you a good person? Like that's a very important conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful, so powerful. So let's just kind of move on to a big question I have for you.
Okay.
And there's been so much value for today. What has been the big struggles for you in developing Shiro online, in person, like where the brand's going? It's been a very big passion project that you're trying to make, obviously a business that serves you and the people around you. So what's been your biggest struggles so far?
So I'd never run a business before. I've managed teams, I've managed other people, like been in management roles in other people's businesses, but I had never run my own business. So the business side of things has been such a steep learning curve. Like I'm like, I coach well, and then there's so much that I don't know. So there was a lot of things. Like we went in with just like this grand idea of what it was going to be. And then on top of it being like a pandemic and all the plans that we had initially for a lot of
plans. What plans? Strategy? No.
So it's really meant learning how to be really flexible. More so, like I have always believed myself to be someone who's great under stress and adaptable, but from a business standpoint, being able to pivot at any point and say, this isn't working, throw it away, let's move on and do the next thing. And really, the biggest lesson in the last year has really been to prioritize strategy planning and reviews. Because it's funny, my business partner has many, many years of business experience and in the fitness industry specifically. And when we sat down, we were like, yeah, let's do this thing. And we noticed that we had just been doing things. And he's like, all of the things that I used to do in my previous business, I haven't been doing recently. So we had to like really come back and refocus and make sure that we weren't getting distracted with the fluffy stuff. Like obviously things like marketing and creating content and all of those things are important. But there was a point where that was taking up so much of our time where the actual stuff that was important wasn't the things that we were prioritizing. So that's been a massive learning curve. And really realizing that the place that I have the most value is like when I'm coaching, when I'm working in person with people, business development, when I'm meeting humans. So learning how to outsource So a lot of this year has been about creating systems so I could hire an admin assistant to give all of that stuff to.
Yeah.
Because I remember last year being like, I'm so overwhelmed with this stuff, but I didn't even have systems in place that I could hand it to someone. I was just doing stuff out of my head.
So even more overwhelmed.
Yeah. So being able to hand that off to an assistant and starting to bring on other people to take on the stuff, like, you know, anyone in business will say, like, delegate the things that aren't in your zone of genius. But it's hard in those early days of a business because you're kind of torn, like, I can't really afford to pay someone. But at the same time, you can't afford not to pay someone because you can't afford to be wasting your time doing the stuff that you're not good at.
Yeah. Such a beautiful point. I think with all that, what was really nice to hear is there is an aspect of starting a business, being in that new business role, that like doing the content stuff or the marketing stuff, it is fluffy, it is shiny, it is cool, but there's a massive emotional cost to all of that stuff. And then when like the business is or isn't doing well, it's still emotional. Everything's like driven by emotion. Whereas having strategy and having reviews is a bit like going, okay, bottom line is if there's no more weight on the bar, the program's just not working, right? So you need to just change the program. That's okay. Not all program is suitable, right? And I think that goes across to most people's like, can we just allow the numbers, the key performance indicators to tell the story rather than your emotions? Because your emotions can be led on like, you just had a shitty client, or, you know, it's just been a bad month, or there's something else going on at home, or you actually haven't prioritized your sleep. And if you looked at the numbers, like, no, the business is fine. You're just needing to look after your health a little bit more, and you'd feel more fulfilled, or you'd see more success. And it's a really key aspect. And it feels like you're removing yourself from the business by taking less emotion in it, but actually it allows you to find more flow because you're under less, you know, you just have a much more abundant mindset because like there's just clarity, so you can find flow and be under less pressure.
Yeah.
Wow. Powerful conversation, Jesse. If I were to just wrap this up and ask you for one specific thing, it would be, what would be your advice to someone to live their best life? So I'm not saying trainer, I'm not saying client, I'm saying if you're in a bar and someone asks you that question, what would you say?
The most transformational work I've done in the last 10 years that has made me love my life more is learning how to be with my emotions. We spend so much of our life trying to numb ourselves from our feelings. And so learning that emotions are not good or bad, they're not all the names that we give them, and the stories we tell ourselves. Emotion is energy that needs to move through your body. And we need to experience all the feelings and all of those sensations to have the ultimate highs. We have to have the ultimate lows. So when we're numbing ourselves by being busy all the time, or training super hard, or eating the food, or watching Netflix all the time, or all of those things that we use to not feel our feelings, it limits our ability to feel happiness because we can't feel our feelings. That is the core of what's going to make you happy. And then all the other stuff starts to fall into place when you can be honest about your feelings authentically.
Jeez, like it. That was powerful. Woo, we got goosebumps. Jesse, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Our relationship has been built on like just these really honest, cool conversations. And even though you are all the way in Dubai, we have a really cool bond, and I appreciate you a lot, and I appreciate your time today. If people wanted to follow you or hear more about you and stuff like that, where would you recommend they find you?
So on Instagram, I'm at Jesse Akister. You can follow The Shiro Life at The Shiro Life, and our website is theshirolife.com. So
amazing, simple. I think you practiced that before, haven't you?
I've been asked more than once.
Oh man, Jesse, loads of love, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been an honor.